Hi, thanks for being with me today. Welcome to you from Wellington Dam on the edge of the bush in Western Australia. I'm just going to chat with you today really about 3 signs that you might be resisting God's will in your life. The aim of the Christian life, of course, is to surrender to the Lordship of Christ over us, to recognise that He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and that we want to live under that Lordship. And we know that living under the Lordship of Christ is actually the pathway to true freedom. When our lives are sort of in the flow with God, as it were, that's when we find true peace and joy in our lives. And surrendering to the Lordship of Christ isn't a passive thing. It doesn't mean we sort of abdicate all responsibility for our lives, but we just recognise that we are living under a higher sovereignty. But it's difficult for us to do that because, as human beings, we are hardwired to want to control our lives. It's part of our DNA. It's part of the survival instinct that has been in humanity since the beginning of time, really. So it's quite counterintuitive to want to submit to God's authority. So do you find it difficult to submit to the authority of God? Let me know in the comments below. If it might be an issue for you, I'm just going to give you 3 signs that it might be an issue for you and what you can do about it. And the first is over-planning, overthinking things. I know for myself, I do tend to over-plan and overthink things. When I'm starting a new project, when an issue comes up in my life, I want to plan for every eventuality. I want to think, okay, well, if this happens, then I'll do that. And if this situation arises, then I'm going to take this course of action. And in some sense, that's a sort of being caught up in the cycle of resistance. Now, it is a survival mechanism, as I mentioned a moment ago, because we don't like unpredictability. Unpredictability in our lives is a threat to our safety, our security. But life is not predictable. And, it doesn't matter how much we plan, it doesn't matter how much we strategize, we cannot make life predictable. It is good to plan. I mean, in Luke chapter 14, Jesus tells the parable of building a tower, doesn't he? He says nobody builds a tower without counting the cost first. And then he talks about the king who's going to go to war, obviously has to see how many troops he's got and how many troops the enemy has got. And Jesus says, lack of planning is foolish activity. So we do need to plan, but we've got to be prepared to surrender our plans to God and to His greater plan for our life. I mean, I think I've mentioned before, I've got really, really clear life goals. I know exactly where I want to be in 5 years' time and who I want to be in 5 years' time. But as much as I work towards those relentlessly, if ever I get the sense that those goals do not accord with God's goals for my life, then I need to surrender them and allow God to take me in a different direction. The idea of just stepping out with God without overthinking it is, of course, a biblical principle we need to explore in our own lives. Abram did it in Genesis chapter 12, when God said to him, go to the land that I will show you. And Abram left his home and he went. He didn't know exactly where God was taking him. He had no clear idea on that. But he just trusted in God. He didn't overthink. He didn't overplan. He just stepped out in faith with God. And the truth is, that the proof that God is with you, the proof that God is sovereign over your life and caring for you and guarding you and guiding you only comes after you act. It doesn't come before you act. If you are prepared to step out under the sovereignty of God in your life, you will only know after that act that it was the right thing to do, never before. So, the first thing is then, try not to overthink things. and try not to overplan if you want. And if you are overthinking and overplanning, then you might have a problem with the sovereignty of God in your life. Second sign that you might be resisting God's plan for your life is that you may be clinging to things that are of no benefit to you. There are things in our life that used to be beneficial, but the value of that has gone now. Sometimes that can be quite profound, relationships, friendships that we might have, that when we were at a certain point in our life, they were good friendships for us, they were positive, they were encouraging, but you may be at a different stage in your life now, a different stage in your spiritual journey, and you might be clinging to the same old friendships, but in reality you know that they're not really benefiting you, they're not benefiting your spiritual growth or your walk with God. It can be the same with jobs as well. Just being comfortable in the same job that you've done for a long time, but it's not really benefiting you. And also, I think that, sometimes we cling to self-belief, ideas that we've held about ourselves in the past that are just not helpful anymore. They may be keeping us small. They may be, we might think, oh, well, I'm not very good at this, or I'm not a very patient person, or I'm not very kind, or I don't have any real spiritual gifts to use in the church. And we cling on to these ideas that aren't beneficial to us. They're not helpful. They don't serve us. But the problem is that, of course, that familiarity is comfortable. Sometimes in life, we would rather cling on to ideas and relationships and jobs that we feel comfortable in, rather than laying them to one side and journeying out with God into new unknown territory. But we do need to let go of things that no longer benefit us so that God can do a new work in us. In Matthew 9, Jesus says, no one puts new wine in old wineskins. And I think sometimes our lives can be an old wineskin, and God has got something new for you. God has got a new vision for your life, a new plan, a new direction for you. But until you learn to let go of those things that are no longer benefiting you, are no longer useful to you, then God won't be able to do that new work. So is there anything in your life that is comfortable and familiar, but in your heart of hearts, you know that it's not really serving you any longer? Well, maybe now is the time to move away from that. And thirdly and finally, I would say a sign that you might be resisting God's control over your life is the need for certainty. If you feel that you need certainty, so often I hear people say, oh yeah, I will start a YouTube channel when I've got more time, or yeah, I will go traveling when the kids are older, or yeah, I will emigrate, but I need to wait for more income, or whatever, and people so often put things off until ... They want certainty before they take an action. And sometimes, God calls us into a new way of living, a new way of being, a new ministry, a new whatever. But we feel, well, I need to be more certain before I step out and do it. I think it's God's call on my life, but I want a bit more certainty. But the truth is, we don't get certainty without taking action. We need to step out in faith and step out with God. That's the whole point of faith. It's not certain. There isn't any certainty. It's, getting that sense that God wants you to do something and being prepared to step out and do it and surrender to God, even though you're not absolutely sure about it. That's where spiritual growth goes. And, we see that in the Gospels, in Matthew chapter 14, where Peter steps out the boat and walks on water. And all the while he's got his eyes fixed on Jesus, he's able to walk on water. But as soon as he looks down and sees the waves and thinks, oh my goodness, I'm going to sink, that's when he started sinking, right? So, you know, the certainty for Peter was there when he kept his eyes on Jesus and surrendered control to Jesus. As soon as he tried to take back control himself and he lost his certainty, then that's when he began to sink. And you know, certainty, I think, the older I get, certainty is an illusion. It's not real. We never really have certainty about anything in life, do we? And so there's no point pursuing it. So I would say, don't wait for certainty. If you've got a hunch that God wants you to do something or change your life or move into a new direction, then don't wait for certainty before you do it. Just do it. Now is the time to surrender to God. Don't wait until you've got more money or until the kids have left school or whatever. You know, I mean, obviously plan, obviously be strategic, obviously don't be reckless. You know, we need to get the balance between stepping out in faith and living reckless lives. But, you know, we can do that in the power of God. So if you overthink and overplan things, if you are clinging on to areas of your life that you know in your heart of hearts is not beneficial or they're not beneficial, if you feel like you need certainty before you're going to do anything major for God, then I would say these may be signs that you're struggling to surrender your life to God. You need to surrender to God because that's the purpose of your life. But if you are thinking, yep, that's me, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't berate yourself at this point for going, oh, I'm such a useless Christian, I can't even surrender my life to God, because it's a journey. And the journey of spiritual growth is a journey into surrender. So, you know, don't give yourself a hard time if you feel at this point in our conversation together that, you know, you're not surrendering to God. It's okay. It's just a journey, and it might just be ready for the next stage. And so I think what you need to do is just chip away at those parts of your life where you are trying to retain control and not surrender to God. Just chip away at it bit by bit, a little bit more each day, and you will be amazed within a year of how far you have come in surrendering your life to God. So, you know, don't give yourself a hard time. Just decide today you're going to chip away a little bit and surrender a little bit more of your life to Jesus. And, you know, that's where you'll find peace and joy, and ultimate happiness is in the complete surrender of your life to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. There we are. Well, I hope you found that useful. Thanks for being with me today. I know you guys are so busy, and I always appreciate it when you give me so much of your time. So I hope that's been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Take care. Bye.